All right. Well, thank you, Kim, and welcome everyone once again. I'm Mary Addeo, Secondary Program Specialist at VCU's TTAC. You might remember me. Jennifer and I, we actually presented the co-teaching approaches this past Monday, and I hope that you've been enjoying your week. And we are so very pleased to be with you once again so far to talk about high leverage practices for students with disabilities. And this will be, again, just a 30-minute overview along with my colleague, Diane.
Good morning. Hello, everybody. Yes, it's still morning. I'm Diane Lewis, and I'm an elementary program specialist with TTAC. And I hope you can see the likeness and our little caricatures on the screen there, noticing that Mary is quite a bit thinner than I am.
Oh, stop it, Diane.
I'm very excited to be with you here this morning and just to give you an overview of high leverage practices for students with disabilities. If you at any time can't see my screen, or if you can't hear the sound, we're going to play a video in a few minutes. If you would just put that in chat to let us know so that we can correct any technology errors that might occur. Today we will discuss what are HLPs. You'll hear me and Mary as well say HLPs. That stands for yet another acronym in education, high leverage practices. So today we'll discuss what they are, why do we need them, who can use them, how can we use HLPs in classrooms, and then where we can find additional resources and information about HLPs. So back in 2014, the Council for Exceptional Children, also known as the CEC, partnered with the Cedar Center, which is out of the University of Florida, to develop a set of instructional practices that have been proven by evidence obtained from classrooms to be effective strategies, practices, and techniques that worked with students with disabilities across content areas. These practices focus directly on instruction and should occur with high frequency in teaching. They are research-based and known to foster important kinds of student engagement and learning. They're broadly applicable and usable in any content area or approach to teaching. And the HLPs are so important that skillfully executing them is fundamental to effective teaching. In 2016, CEC and the Cedar Center published their 22 HLPs for educators, special education and general education that all students can benefit from. The HLPs are organized around 4 aspects or domains of practice. They are collaboration, assessment, social behavioral, and instruction. These practices can be used to teach both academic content and emotional, behavioral, and social skills. The integrated and recursive use of these HLPs in these 4 domains results in some overlap, as you'll see as we dive deeper. So just a brief overview: collaboration, effective special education teachers and general education teachers collaborate with a wide variety of professionals, families, and caregivers to assure that educational programs and related services are effectively designed and implemented to meet the needs of students with disabilities. Collaboration allows for varied expertise and perspectives about a student to be shared among those responsible for the student's learning and well-being. This collective expertise provides collaborators with a more comprehensive understanding of each student's needs, which can be used to be more effectively planning and implementing instruction and services. The next domain is assessment. This plays a foundational role in education for all students, especially those with disabilities. Learners have unique needs that exist alongside of their strengths, and effective special education and general education teachers have to really fully understand those strengths and needs. The social behavioral domain. Effective teachers establish a consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment to support student success. These strategies focus on increasing appropriate behavior by explicitly teaching social skills and offer students multiple opportunities to practice appropriate social behaviors throughout the school day and receive positive feedback. They also implement evidence-based practices to prevent increasingly comprehensive supports through using a team-based problem-solving strategy to match the intensity of student challenges, guided by behavioral assessments such as FBAs, functional behavioral assessments, and BIPs, which are behavioral intervention plans. Finally, they implement all behavioral supports, even those in response to significant behavior problems, in a caring, respectful, and culturally relevant manner. And the last domain is instruction. Teaching students with disabilities should be strategic, flexible, and a recursive process as teachers use content knowledge, instructional knowledge of evidence-based practices, and student data to deliver and design and evaluate the effectiveness of instruction. This process begins with well-designed instruction. It needs to be delivered with fidelity and is designed to maximize academic learning time, engage learners in meaningful activities, and emphasize proactive and positive approaches across the tiers of instruction. So why do we need high leverage practices? Well, originally the CEC and the Cedar Center developed a list of 22 HLPs for special education teachers that need to a deep and comprehensive understanding of students with disabilities that allows them to develop highly responsive, explicit, systematic instructional and behavioral interventions that support the success of these students and respond to their diverse needs. As time and data have been collected since the HLP's induction in 2016, research has shown that improving the effectiveness of teachers is the most direct approach to improving outcomes for low achieving students. So learning to teach is complex and demanding work. I don't need to tell you. All teachers are challenged to teach in ways that are responsive to students' needs. Special education teachers face the challenge of teaching students with some of the most complex learning and behavioral difficulties. Students with disabilities have some combination of attention, memory, reasoning, communication, physical and behavioral difficulties that can interfere with their ability to acquire the literacy, the mathematical skills, independent living, and social skills that they need to be successful in school, post-secondary education, work, life in general. These HLPs provide educators with strategies to meet these challenges. That's why we need them. So who can use high leverage practices? Originally, they were developed for special education instructors. However, the HLPs are intended to provide those who work with learners as special education teachers, but also general education teachers, beginning teachers, veteran teachers, those that provide professional development for instructors, and administrators, principals who support teachers and students. The high leverage practices they're a playbook that describes the foundational practices needed for effective and successful experiences for our nation's students with some of the most complex learning and behavioral needs. And they've also proven effective for typical learners in the process of implementing. So now that we've given you kind of an overview of what they are and who can use them and why we need them, I'll let Mary take over and dive a little bit deeper in each of those domains.
All right, well, thanks, Diane. So how can you use the HLPs? Well, as Diane had told us, research has demonstrated high leverage practices really do improve student achievement, and they support effective teaching and consistent learning for not just students with special needs, but really for every student to succeed. We do know that a special education teacher's instruction should focus on learning goals. You know, the students, again, I talk about specially designed instruction as we work towards the students' goals, being explicit, flexible, and then using various learning tools such as technology, assistive technology. And instruction should be well-designed, strategic, and adaptable. And so we are going to dig into the HLPs and kind of focus a little bit more to give you an idea, and beginning with collaboration. Now, we know that collaboration begins before the classroom. This is part of your co-planning process. This is part of your preparation for your classroom. So HLP 1 is to collaborate with professionals to increase student success. And then this is your co-teaching, general education teachers, your collaboration with paraprofessionals, support staff. Very important, again, to plan for your class, to plan to ensure that you are meeting the goals of your students in the class. HLP 2, organize and facilitate effective meetings with professionals and families. And again, this is sharing our multiple perspectives, very active listening. And HLP 3, collaborate with families to support student learning and secure needed services. And it's so important that we communicate with the families in reference to our students' needs and get them on board with the IEP process and planning process. All right, and that moves on to assessment. Assessment, again, so important for our students with special needs to ensure that we are providing the services that they require. So HLP 4, use multiple sources of information to develop a comprehensive understanding of a student's strengths and needs. Assessments, one assessment will not tell us everything about our student. We need to look at data, as much data as we can as we're planning the sort of instruction and goals and all to assist our students with the curriculum. HLP 5, interpret and communicate assessment information with stakeholders to collaboratively design and implement educational programs. Once again, understand the data needed to develop IEPs. And that's important as well. HLP 6, use student assessment data, analyze instructional practices, and make necessary adjustments that improve student outcomes. So basically, we plan with collaboration, the effective practices, but then we see if something isn't working, we discard that. We try something different. When the data changes, when we see that students have mastered some of the goals that we have set, then we see what else we need to work on. Well, thanks, Diane. All right, so now social emotional behavioral, most important after this particularly difficult year for both students and teachers, after COVID. HLP 7, establish a consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment. I'd like to call this the foundation, and Diane and I talk about this often as well, that if you do not have HLP 7 set in place in your classroom, it's very difficult to teach anything, and very difficult for your students to learn anything if you don't have a consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment. And that is having rules, it's having routines, it's providing clear expectations, and as Diane had pointed out earlier as well, culturally responsive teaching and learning. So HLP 8, provide positive and constructive feedback to guide your students' learning and behavioral. This goes with our formative assessment, strategically delivered and goal-directed. HLP 9, teach social behaviors. Very important, I think, actually for all of our students, but most particularly for our students with particular needs. Explicitly teach communication skills, self-management, school-wide expectations. And HLP 10, conduct functional behavioral assessments. And this, of course, our special educators are very familiar with. All right, now this looks pretty thick here because there are so many instructional HLPs. And I will point out that all of them are important. All of them are worth delving into as you're planning for your next school year. And you know, after your collaboration, after you look at assessment for your students, after you consider the social emotional aspects. Now we're on to instruction. So HLP 11, 12, what I did here was kind of combine so that you could get just the gist of what the instructional HLPs contain. So 11 and 12, systematically design instruction towards specific learning goals. Now this, we're designing instruction toward the standards, most importantly, toward the students' IEPs. We're looking at data. We're paying attention to pacing, the students' prior knowledge, and providing examples, and so forth. We have HLP 18, 21, and 22, deal with increasing student engagement. Most important, opportunities to respond. Once again, your formative assessment. This can be peer assisted, tech supported, positive, constructive feedback, and reinforcement. And then we have scaffolded supports to adapt curriculum materials and tasks, flexible grouping, and something that we're going to hone in on here, HLP 14 and 16, which really cognitive and metacognitive strategies, direct and explicit instruction. They joke with me at TTAC a lot because I really love to discuss direct and explicit instruction, and most particularly the I do, we do, you do that we're going to talk about in a moment. So important really for full group instruction, small group instruction, one-on-one with students with special needs, but all of our students really benefit from this. Self-regulation, thinking aloud as you teach, highlighting essential content, modeling, scaffolding. So we are going to look at the next slide then, where we have HLP 16, and this is on explicit instruction. And Diane and I are going to show you, it's actually a two-part, but we're not showing you a two-part. We're a little bit under 4 minutes, just to give you an idea of explicit instruction. It is one of the most extensively researched instructional approaches available to general and special education teachers working with students with disabilities. It is a set of teacher behaviors, but they are effective and efficient for supporting student outcomes. And again, I can't recommend it enough. Out of my toolbox would always come, I do, we do, you do, most particularly when introducing new content, but with working with students, you know, in alternative teaching approaches and so forth. So we did want to point out as well, and we're going to show you in the resource section as we move on here, that there are videos in the resources for every HLP, because again, we're providing such a quick overview, but we really encourage you to look at these if you have time this summer, or you question how an HLP might possibly look in the classroom. It's some wonderful information. Okay, Diane.
Thanks, Mary. And just to piggyback on what you've said, the links and these resources, everything that we show you today, they are provided on the slide in our PowerPoint, as well as they're in the Co-Teaching English resources folder that you have access to. So be sure to utilize those links to find out more information. This is the video on explicit instruction that Mary alluded to. And
your first models,
I'm gonna just play a portion of that.
Number 16, use explicit instruction. The primary sources for content in this video are Anita Archer and Charles Hughes' book, Explicit Instruction, and the High Leverage Practices in Special Education book published by CEC and the Cedar Center. There are 22 high leverage practices for special education spread across 4 domains. HLP number 16, use explicit instruction, falls under the instruction domain. This video is organized into 2 parts. First, we introduce and define explicit instruction. In part 2, we break the practice down into 4 key components to illustrate how general and special education teachers are using explicit instruction to support the needs of students with disabilities across a range of settings. Part 1. Introduction to Explicit Instruction. Explicit instruction is one of the most extensively researched instructional approaches available to general and special education teachers working with students with disabilities. But what is it? Explicit instruction is really a set of teacher behaviors that are individually and collectively effective and efficient for supporting student outcomes. Put simply, explicit instruction helps teachers design and deliver effective instruction for a range of student learning needs. Teachers who use explicit instruction bring a laser-like focus on only selecting the most critical content students need to know, sequencing skills logically, and breaking complex skills and strategies into smaller instructional units. Teachers also highlight critical examples and non-examples. One hallmark of explicit instruction is teachers provide lots of opportunities for students to respond, to keep instruction moving at a brisk pace, and provide immediate feedback on student performance. Language used within explicit lessons is crystal clear. Another hallmark is explicit lessons are known for the I do, we do, you do instructional sequence. This means the teacher first models how to solve a problem or complete a task by thinking aloud and provides a demonstration. Then the teacher guides students through a scaffolded application of the skill or concept and provides feedback. Finally, students are provided opportunities for independent practice to ensure mastery. Students receive meaningful feedback at every step. It's important to note that while any teacher can and should provide explicit instruction, the intensity with which teachers use this practice increases with the specific needs of students with disabilities. For example, special education teachers and other specialists should use data to make informed decisions about the size of instructional groups and determine the needed intensity of instruction.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Diane. Something too to point out that this explicit instruction actually contains so many of the HLPs within it. You know, as you might notice as you really have time to unpack them. So very powerful. And again, I always say, if I have anything in my toolbox, I start with that. So thank you, Diane. I think we're doing well time-wise. We did put together some resources to help you plan. And I think we have just a couple minutes here to open them up for you. They are in your chat and also in the resources folder.
Yes, and I've just put the link to the, sorry, let me go back to the screen. I've put the link to the Google Doc that contains all of these links, but you of course can access those through the Google folder that was shared. So one of the sites that you saw me move over to for the explicit instruction video was the High Leverage Practices for Students with Disabilities, the CEC and Cedar Center have put together. You'll notice that you can explore all of the domains from this site. You can find resources and then access all of the videos, which we encourage you to do. With our limited time today, we just wanted to give you an overview. What is so important to take from today is the links that you have to learn more and to dive deeper into some of these practices in order to implement them in your classrooms. So that's the High Leverage Practices site. And then there's also, Mary, if you want to tell them about the flyer.
Yeah, the flyer is just wonderful to have at your fingertips, so to speak. You know, you could also put this in your planning book, or, you know, just to have this available. So it lists all 22 high leverage practices. It kind of reminds you also, you know, of collaboration, what that would entail, assessment, the social, emotional, and instruction. So this is actually just something nice to have that you can refer to quickly and, you know, and then see what high leverage practice you may want to delve into a little deeper, or that you find that you may need to focus on.
Thank you, Mary. So that is available to you in that folder as well. And then there's a class accommodation grid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we put this in really just to assist you in your planning. So with this, you would put the students' names down on the side or their initials, however you would want to do this. But this is really for you and your co-teacher or so to ensure that your students, you know at a glance what their accommodations now, not working towards their goals, but the accommodations that they require to access the curriculum. You would put that along the top and then put check marks and all to ensure. So it's kind of like at a glance. And this is something that there is a blank one right there. And of course you can go in and take away anything and add anything that you would need to do. And this is excellent as you prepare for your class.
Absolutely, Mary. And I might even add that as a special educator, you are required to share these accommodations with any general education teacher or a resource teacher, elective teacher that has a vested interest in the students that you are serving with disabilities. So this is a great tool to use to communicate those accommodations with others.
Absolutely.
Then the IEP planning record.
That's right. So here, the IEP planning record is actually where the students' IEP goals are put on the side for your particular class. And then you see you have a Monday through Friday, and you'll look at and it's like, what sort of activities are we planning? And this is great to bring out as you're talking to your co-teacher and as you're planning your lessons that actually work towards the student's goals. So this is a wonderful, wonderful way for you to collect data. We do know that special educators fill out progress reports quarterly. This is a wonderful way to keep this. So to keep this data at your fingertips. I see Sarah said she uses a form called At a Glance that puts together that. That's good to hear. And that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But we thought we would put this, oh, I'm sorry, Diane. We thought we would include this for those of you who may not have something, you know, to this effect, because it's quite helpful.
And it's also great ways to take a look at other resources and then just sort of pull what you need and create your own to meet your own individual needs as their instructors. I might also add, this is a great way to identify the goals or activities that you may not have thought about when you were originally planning. So when you're collaborating and planning, using a tool like this would sort of pull those items left out to your attention, and you could ensure that you are addressing all of those needs.
Good point, Diane.
And then the last resource that we have identified for you on that slide and in that Google Doc is the methods to intensify instructional delivery. And Mary, if you want to tell them a little bit about that one, I'll point out some stuff.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So what's included here, this is, again, as you're planning and as you're thinking about strategies to work towards students' goals, as you're thinking about little reminders of ways that you could clarify content and lessons and such. This is really a wonderful form. The HLPs are here in you know, all listed. Not all of them, of course, but many of them. So it's really just a nice worksheet to kind of, you know, add to your toolbox here to remind you of certain things that, you know, you could do to help students. Again, you see more modeling with clearer and more detailed explanations, more concrete learning opportunities with the use of pictures, graphics, manipulatives, tasks broken down into smaller steps and so forth. So just another sheet. I know we have a lot of sheets, but I don't know. I would always find when I'm in the classroom that I have some, you know, some sheets or some reminders or some things that I would depend on, you know, that I would actually use that would really, really help me. So we hope that these resources will help you as well, you know, as you plan for this year, and that you really delve into the high leverage practices, which are really good teaching. It's, you know, good teaching, not just for our students, again, with disabilities, but for all students. Diane?
Yes, so again, today was an overview of high leverage practices, just to give you the knowledge of what they are, and then where some additional information is housed, and tools that you can add to your tool belt or your tool pack. So if you have any questions, we would be more than happy to address them. We are right at 12 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you have any questions, just put those in the chat, or you can email us. Our emails are on the screen there for you. And Kim, I'll turn it back over to you.